We're getting the live stream going online so that folks who want to watch virtually, will they be able to participate virtually? We'll go ahead and start with a roll call.
Tom Aiden,
Here.
Sam Battle,
Here.
Barry Hubbard,
Here.
Jim Onderko,
Here.
Dawn Cowart, Derek Tedrow,
Here.
Mayor Whitfield.
Here. All right, so we do have a full body today, so we won't have to do the disclosure every time, so that's good to know. I'll start off with approval of the minutes. If there's no questions or amendments recommended, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
A move by Derek. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jim. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. The next order of business is, normally we would have our next Planning Commission meeting on March 7th, which is a Tuesday, but that is also the day of our State of the City address that will be at Lorain County Community College during the same time. So we'll be looking to reschedule that meeting, and wanted to know if there's any dates we should stay away from between March 7th and March 14th.
Want to do it the following Tuesday?
So we'd either be looking at the following Tuesday, on the 14th. And if that didn't work, we'd do a day between then. 14th.
Mayor, I'll be on vacation that week, but I don't think you have to necessarily have me depending on what's on the calendar.
Okay. All right, so knowing that we won't, there's no major conflicts, you have, the Planning Commission Secretary will find a day and communicate it out to everybody, a day that works, so thank y'all for that. And, again, you're always invited to come to the State of the City address as well. Today, for our public hearings, we have 3 public hearings. The first one is for Watch Me Grow Learning Center, 836 Sandalwood Drive, requesting a conditional use permit to operate a Type A child care facility. If there's someone from the organization that would like to come up and give an overview of your project, please come forward. You're going to state your name, the name of the address, and give us an overview of your project.
Hi, my name is Nita Stevens. I'm from Watch Me Grow Learning Center, 836 Sandalwood Drive. I've been a resident from the area all my life. I'm currently a Type B provider, which serves 1 to 6 kids. I'm currently licensed through Ohio Jobs and Family Services. The license provides quality child care for Lorain County families, and is also regulated through them. There is a great need for in-home child care providers, and I would like a permit to allow me to become a Type A child care provider, which enables me to serve up to 12 children per shift. My background is 30 years experience in which I take care of children. I love taking care of children. I have 2 grown children, 11 grandchildren. I worked with foster care for 4 years. In addition, I worked through COVID-19 pandemic through child care. I worked with other families. That's how I met a lot of families who need child care. Right now, I currently have 5 families, 16 kids, and still getting called for more kids, actually. I am the only one provider within a 3-mile radius of 24 hours, 7 days a week. I'm currently located, I'm conveniently located 2 minutes from the college, 10 minutes from Route 2 and 480 highways. Lastly, if I'm granted this permit to become a Child A provider, increase quality child care, and it'll help needy families, working families. Because most of the child care centers is open from like 6 to 6, and I'm more of a non-conditional one, which I do 3 to 11, 11 to 7, second shift, third shift. It's not a lot of 8 to 2, 8 to 5 shifts anymore. It's a lot of second and third shifts that daycares don't provide, and plus they're having a lot of trouble, people working. I do have a team, ready to go. So if I'm provided, that would be greatly appreciated. And it also give me a chance to hire a couple more people, to help. So I'll be helping the community and creating jobs.
Thank you, Ms. Stevens. Any questions from the committee? We may have questions in a little bit, but for now, that'll be good. Thank you. Thank you. Are there any other proponents? Any other proponents? Any other proponents? Are there any opponents? Any opponents? Okay, can we have a staff report, Mr. Farkas?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. The proponent is requesting a conditional use to accommodate a proposed Type A child care facility. As a note, the site is currently utilized as a Type B child care facility prior to approvals. Staff findings. RMD, the site is currently zoned residential medium density district, the requirement to which can be located in Chapter 1144 of the Elyria Codified Ordinance. It is a purpose of a residential medium density district to establish and maintain high quality areas within the city for homes and medium population density, to preserve the existing residential neighborhoods characterized by single household residences. The principally permanent uses are as follows: agricultural, provided that such use is limited to non-commercial farming of crops and non-commercial animal husbandry; education institutes, non-commercial recreation; religious places of worship; single household dwellings and detached dwellings, etc. RMD conditionally permitted uses states in section 114404 that conditionally permitted uses of which are as follows: are bed and breakfast, establishment, planned unit development, residential planned unit development, child care facilities, provided the following conditions substantially exist. Number 1 through 8, as we have been through these before, pretty much they're all the same. I'm going to jump to my last or second to last page of my recommendations, as this goes hand in hand with my findings. I have listed the requirements in section 114404, conditionally permitted uses for the board's use. Each item 1 through 8 should be carefully considered by the commission and or council in order to determine if the following substantially exist. Number 1, the minimum lot area shall be 30,000 square feet. The current lot size calculates 8,100. Number 2, the minimum lot frontage shall be 175 feet. The current lot frontage along Sandalwood is 60 feet. Page 3. The minimum building setback shall be 50 feet from the front and rear property lines and side. The current setbacks from the front property lines using the Lorain County Auditor's website map measuring tool, which I did attach those plans for the board's use, indicates 30 feet from the front, 4 feet from the north and side, and 10 feet from the south property line, and 56 feet from the rear north. I have a note: an accurate site plan is still needed to confirm compliance.
Chief Farkas, just a second before you go through 4 through 8. I guess one of the burning questions I have is it would almost be good to see a comparison, because we've had probably over the past year, to be safe, I'd say 5 of these that have come before us. And I'd say probably 3 or 4 we've approved, and there's been 2 that we've not approved. So can we speak to what, it'd be nice to see kind of how these compare, this situation compares to the ones we've approved and the ones we've rejected. I know some of the concerns we had on some of them was, parking, We had concerns of certain areas were located close to high traffic locations. And again, this is something we're hoping when we do this comprehensive planning, when we finish this plan, we'll address this stuff so it doesn't come before us and we just make our statements on it so people don't have to go through this. But how does this compare to some of the ones we've approved and some of the ones we've rejected in the past 2 years?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Mark, if you would please scroll up to the next site map. There you go, right. Okay, we'll use that one there. As you can see on that particular delineation, this is the map view. Most of these lots are typically similar in size. They do vary within a couple feet, but the board has continually asked, what are the side yard setbacks? As you can see in the report, they have to be a significant size. These are existing residential lots that were not intended to meet this kind of requirement just because they're supposed to be residential uses. As many of these lots are akin to the other ones approved, with the exception of, I think one was denied due to a homeowners association disagreement. But these are all very similar. They're very tightly built. They're very compact. They're very limited in regards to access. They are on streets that are busy with neighborhood traffic. I always ask the board to please consider these types of establishments so it doesn't adversely affect or impact neighbors. I think the last word I used was elbow room. It's designed to have kids run and play, throw the ball, make noise, kids being kids. And in a tightly, densely packed area with a limited yard such as we see here, it does restrict and does not meet the requirements that are established in our ordinance.
Okay, thank you, Chief Farkas. Ms. Stevens, could you come back to the microphone, please? I know, again, one of the concerns is always about how the neighbors feel about this. I noticed you have some letters that are written here. Could you speak to who are the folks from these letters of support you provided?
The letters is from daycare providers, the families I provide for now. One of them is for a child that I did a while ago, and she just wanted to do a letter of recommendation. The other two is from the children I provide for services now.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I do have a fenced back in yard. I did get the permission. I did go to my neighbors to ask for permission and what they thought about it. They did sign, and they was okay with it. And they already knew I did daycare anyway because they hear the kids or whatever, so they was okay with it.
Yeah. When you say they signed, what did they sign?
When we turn in the application, they have to sign. We have to get our neighbor's permission in front of us, on the side of us, and the back of us. And I have done so.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And with their names and addresses of where they're located at also.
These are the letters.
I also provided some pictures to show like the front where the main street is, my driveway, which provides at least 3 or 4 cars, and front parking also. And a picture of the backyard, which is fenced in fully, just some part, all around.
All right. So if you could stay there. Any questions from the committee in terms of the staff report or what Ms. Stevens has presented here? I know, Mr. Hubbard, you always had some really thoughtful things to say when it came to these that I thought helped shape the way we thought about how we approach these.
I suppose one of the questions that I would have based upon the report, first off to Chief Farkas, are there any properties within the area, surrounding area, residential properties like this, that would meet any of those kind of first 3 concerns, the minimal lot area, frontage, and minimum setbacks, or is this house pretty typical for homes in that area?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Hubbard. This particular subdivision, as we know, going through the planning commission process, they're all designed to get the biggest bang for the buck, so the lots are reduced in size. The homes are built to the furthest extent permitted for side yard setback, front yard setback, thus limiting any kind of future growth. The older developments, I'm going to say, like, let's take Regency Court, which we had a daycare, I think it was 108. Those lots were much, much larger. They were designed for much more of a separation between properties by design. Those types of properties are rare to find in typically Elyria. As most common, you find this lot where they're built to fit. Yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
And I guess the other questions that I would have would kind of center around the daycare. Are we talking something that mostly is geared towards providing care for other children in the immediate neighborhood, or is this kind of throughout the city?
Throughout the city. Through Lorraine County, Ohio Jobs and Family Services, they also have a record of who, like, need child care. You can go through them to say, oh, I need child care, who do you recommend? Or they give you a list. So we're on the list also. So it's not just it's for Lorraine County.
I guess with that in mind, drawing from kind of a wider area, then maybe a few more concerns. Has anything been done or looked at in terms of alleviating the other concerns, like the parking, the drop-off, and then also if you could maybe speak, I know it kind of indicates that there should be a fenced-in area. Is your yard fenced?
Yes, it's fenced. Our backyard is fenced. As far as parking, I have a driveway. It holds like 3 or 4 cars, and there's a picture in there of how our front of my house look, like the street. It's street parking too, because you can park on both sides. But like now, I have 16 kids. It's not like all of them come at the same time. I have 5 of them. I got a family of 5. They come on the weekends. They come day shift weekends. I have a family of 4 come Friday and Saturday, night shift. I have 4 more kids come after school. See, they all sporadic. It ain't like 12 cars are gonna pull up. That's not how that works. They come at different times and everything. So it's not like we're gonna have 12 cars at the house at that time. No. And when they come in and out. They come and get the kids, they leave. They might talk for a second, and they leave, because most of the time they're tired, so.
Thank you for that, Mr. Hubbard. Again, I think we've seen these a number of times. As we're going through this updating of our ordinances, I think it's important for us to remember kind of what are our principles that are guiding our decisions on these. Mr. Aiden.
You know, I was a volunteer on the last time they did this ordinance, you know. As everybody dropped off, I stayed on it, where we met twice and 2 and 3 times a week. I personally think that if you keep permitting this class to let them go to the higher density, and this lady wants to run it 24 hours a day, then you're really not treating the people that really follow the rules, which I think is always a very important thing. I don't think we do that enough in this city. To follow the rules, you're really sort of slapping them in the face. Hey, you did it right. You got your 30,000 square feet or larger, but for what? If you didn't have to spend that extra money or acquire that extra space, you just got to do it any way you want. So I'm totally against it.
So let's make sure let's frame the conversation appropriately, though. So and correct me if I'm wrong, Chief Farkas. So the ordinance that's written around the zoning is written, and can you go back to the piece where Mr. Chief Farkas's recommendation is? It really lays out what it would be if. So here we go. The residential medium density district. It lays out what the rules are for that sort of zoning. However, when this ordinance was written, I would wonder, and I would question, was in-home daycare the way it is today? Was it an industry the way it is today? Because these rules are specifically, in my opinion, written in a way, when I see child care facilities, they're speaking to the bed and breakfast. They're speaking to, like, this is someone's home that they're using for services. This isn't like, these are more, if nobody was living there and this was just a straight up business that was being run out of there. And then in terms of following the rules, I just think that's the purpose of coming here today, to ask for a conditional use. That is the following the rule, in my opinion, of trying to see if they can conditionally use so different standards, because they're in a different situation than what these were. And so when we go through this planning effort, the hope is that we create a category where these sort of things fit.
We can agree to disagree, and I don't think it's just for an RMD zoning classification, but correct me through Mr. Farkas, I think that's what's required for a Class A, no matter where it's at.
So what we can, so I think that's the piece that we need to tighten up, because what ODJFS requires for a type A, it's not in line with what our ordinance says. So if you want to speak to that, because we've had that conversation a number of times.
Mr. Chair, through you to Mr. Aden. For clarity, we are dealing with two different types, I guess, of mentality. One is from a residential district, which specifically says you can have a daycare at your house, contingent you go through these steps to do so. And it's very restrictive in my mind, because it's supposed to be. It's a filtration process. It gives the rights for people around to say yay or nay. If this were zoned commercially, each commercial district is considered different in regards to setback and coverage. But again, in a commercial district, it says you have to have a commercial building, you have to have a fire alarm, you have to have a sprinkler system. There's a different mentality because of the number of kids. In, let's say, a business general district, where these are most common, we are dealing with a commercial type atmosphere, but the requirements aren't as strict, because you can have, it's a commercial building. You have a parking lot, it's a different type of atmosphere and mentality. Residentially, where typically it was designed to be most uncommon, which, as the mayor said, has become more common, it's designed purposefully to protect the adjacent neighbors, and with their rights in mind in regards to the noise, because everyone's entitled to their peace and tranquility. With this conditional use in this process, the board is weighing that as if you were living next door and you had to hear and listen or deal with the kids' toys coming in the yard, because those complaints do arise.
Oh.
Yep, Mr. Battle.
I'd like to direct a question to Ms. Stevens. Ms. Stevens, you had said there's some kind of staggering, that you have 16 kids and they're not, could you explain me how a day would look like?
Like I said, they come, like, I got 5 on the weekends. A family of 5 come like on the weekends. I have a family of 4, they come on the weekends, but they come day shift. So that's a 6 to 2. I got a family of 4 who come night shift on Fridays and Saturdays. They night shift. They leave at 2 or 3 in the morning. So I got 4 other kids who come after school. See, they're all over the place. So if they come after school, so they're there from after school to like 8, 9. So, and I got 2 others just come on Sundays, second shift. And they leave at 9 o'clock, and they from 4 to like 9. So everybody's not full-time. Some of them is part-time, and they might just need weekends. They might need day shifts. They might need night shifts. So it's not like everybody is that's why it's not set. That's why it's not conditioned, because there's so many people doing so many things, because it's a new era. It's not a 9 to 5 no more. They work 6 to 6 or 3 to 11 or 11 to 7, not just 9 to 5. So they're all over. And that's what makes us so great, because in-home daycares, because we're flexible. We can do the night shift, we can do the second shift, what the daycare centers can't do, because they close at 6 o'clock. They're not open on the weekends. We are.
Yep.
And that's what makes it so better, because we are open on the weekends, and a lot of people work on the weekends. And we're dealing with a lot of single family parents who have to work.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Stevens. Again, I think one of the things, and I'm sorry you're becoming the poster child for a broader conversation that we've been having for 2 years, because we've had a number of these come before us, and every time we're having the same conversation. So I'm really trying to pull out what is important to us in terms of when these come. As I mentioned before, a lot of the times it's around traffic, it's around parking, it's around, is it fenced in? Is there any issues with the neighbors? Have the neighbors expressed that they're okay? Those have been the main kind of themes that I've heard as we've had these conversations. Mr. Hayden?
I understand currently, she doesn't have a lot of people there at any one time. But if we give this approval, that doesn't mean that next month or next year or two months, it can change to have all of them at one time.
Yeah, which still would be the limit of 12 families, you know, would still have that limit, based upon, ODJFS, it still would be a limit to 12.
It's still 12 children, but that could even be only 3 more families added,
Yeah.
because most people have 2 or 3,
Yeah.
4 kids, you know?
Yeah, we
It's
just
not
have
like-
to think worst, sorry, excuse me for interrupting, we just have to think worst case scenario. So we have to think
That's right,
12
yeah.
families. So like if
Right,
there was 12
exactly.
no, the reality that probably won't happen, we still have to think in
That's
terms
true.
of
Okay.
12 individual families.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Dawn, and then Mr. Hubbard.
I had a question. No, it's on. Can't hear me, that's okay. I have a question for Mr. Farkas. There are a number of items on your staff report that indicate, an accurate site plan is still needed. And the screenshots you sent from the auditor's site, are we using those to estimate some of these setbacks, or, I'm a little confused on that. If you could share more information, please.
Mr. Chair, through you to Dawn. Yes, as the application was received, it did not have an accurate site plan listing the setbacks needed for the submittal. So I took liberty in order to move forward with the report to give that for the board's use. And again, I used the county website, which is a plus or minus, for scale, showing the setbacks to give the board some kind of foundation to work from.
So on your report, if we were to indicate what the auditor's report said, or the auditor's site, would it change any of your comments about compliance?
Mr. Chair, through you to Dawn. In regards to if, I'm going to speak hypothetically, if we've received an accurate site plan, in my opinion, they would be within feet of each other. So I think it'd be minimal in regards to my report based on what's required versus what I was able to determine on the county. I don't know if that would sway the board's opinion if it was larger, but it is something to consider.
Thank you.
And Ms. Stevens, again, I thought I saw where the signatures were for the neighbors. Can you show us the document you're referring to that has the signatures from the neighbors?
That one. I think this was not the updated one, but the last one I got was late, but I handed in I was required to get the across the street and back of me and on the side of me.
You have a copy of this? This wasn't in our packet. Write it down so folks can see.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Hubbard, yes.
and I may be misremembering some of the past conversations and that sort of thing, but I feel like in the past when we've granted these, a lot of times it is a number of the neighbors coming forward too, the properties that would be affected that are using the services, and that in-home residential daycare is being servicing really the immediate area around which that it occurs. Do we look at it any different if it's more of a citywide, something that could be provided for in a commercial district, as opposed to like in other cases where everybody's saying, well, we're walking here anyways, and that's why we don't think traffic's going to be a problem, but it also means like that is what's being provided. Those are people that are not otherwise traveling to that area. Does that?
Yep. So just to kind of reiterate what Mr. Hubbard's referring to, and some of the cases we've looked at, and one in particular I think about on Columbus, there was a resident who, many of her clients were right there in the neighborhood, and they just walked over. So the question was, does that impact the way that we've assessed these based on where the clients are coming from? And I would say no, I don't think that played a major factor. The question was always about traffic and parking, and in that case, it seemed to be they had a solution because people were just nearby, that wouldn't be a major issue. So I think that the major theme has always been, how does this impact traffic? As I think about the one that Councilman Oswald came and spoke before, this was near Midway Mall over by High Meadows. They had come before, and they didn't have a fence, and we recommended they get a fence. And one of the concerns was they were right by this traffic that went down Ford Road all the time. We were kind of concerned about that. So I think that's always been a theme about being fenced in, the traffic, parking. Those have always been some of the key themes. And as I look at Sandalwood, you know, it's off of Georgetown, so it's not on that main thoroughfare. There's street parking. She has a driveway. You know, I think, in my opinion, this is pretty consistent with the other ones we've approved. But I do think we need to tighten this up. But yes, Jim.
Another question I would have is just to the rest of the group up here. How do we look at this, you know, say we did approve this, and then someone 3 houses down the street with the same lot size that we said is consistent in this neighborhood, had a fence, but wanted to do the same thing, you know, what would be our reason for yes or no on that if we gave yes on this? And then if somebody came across the street, I mean, you could see where if there were 3 or 4 of these on the same street, maybe it's not a problem with one, but if we're letting one do one thing and someone else is meeting the same requirements, then all of a sudden that would really change the traffic and the situation on the street. So it would only take another 1 or 2 of these on the same street to actually really create, you know, a much different traffic situation. So I just would wonder how we would consider that.
Yeah, thank you for that, Jim. Chief Farkas, I guess that I'd like for you to hear from you about how do we address these sort of things in general when we do these conditional use permits. If everybody went for how do we taper that? And yeah, give us a little context on that.
Mr. Chair, through you, that is a loaded gun.
Yeah.
I will say this. This is why these memos, I urge the board to consider each line item as our law. I don't play favorites. I have to go by what the code says, and I hope you guys understand that. I'm not picking sides. I'm taking the information that we are governed by versus what's proposed. The board's job is to say, am I right, am I wrong? In essence, overturning my decision, which my recommendation is not in favor of. But as far as setting a precedence, this is exactly my concern when the first one came through years ago of going, if you guys do this, you're on the train of having to do this to where we can have one next door, where we've got a whole street of conditional uses for daycares. So it is something to weigh heavily upon your decision.
So how do we do these? So to your point around, I guess there's 2 things. One is the moment we decided to do something different, or the moment we decided to approve, we opened up a door. The other reality is that if we keep getting these applications consistently, we need to evaluate ourselves. We need to evaluate what is it about the world that's changing that we may need to adapt as well. Because if this is an increased growing need in society, and this is a business model, and what does that mean for communities and residential neighborhoods? And I think that's where we're at right now. It's like, I don't think we should take the stance of, you know, we've always done it this way, and so we should just keep doing it this way and keep, you know, denying people the opportunity to serve more young people in their homes. I think we need to look at the society is changing and then make our policies reflective of it with principles that we agree to that are protecting the neighborhood, protecting the kids. So yeah, I think that's a part of the dialogue I think we're trying to have here is recognizing, you know, we're not inviting people to apply. These are people who are coming to us because there's a need and it's a growing need, and then how do we respond to it? So Chief, I'll let you finish through your bullet points in terms of why you recommended denying this, and then we can go to a vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Number 4, the minimum parking space shall be 50 feet from the front property line, and a 30-foot is indicated from the side and rear. I have written the current the access driveway and parking area is 30 feet from the front property line of Sandalwood. Again, I write no accurate site plan provided. Number 5, in order to minimize the adverse impact on surrounding residential properties, they should be placed to the extent possible on the extremities of single-family districts, if located on a local street, or on a major REO collector street. The home is located in the heart of an existing single-family subdivision. Number 6, the play area shall be fenced as so provide a safe, secure environment for the children. Information has not been indicated. Accurate site plan still needed, confirming compliance. And I wrote, note, proposed 12 children permitted for a type A daycare. Number 7, drop-off pickup shall be located as so not to impede traffic safety. Information not provided but utilized in the Lorraine County Auditor's website measuring tool. The driveway measures approximately 10 feet in width and is assumed to be utilized for pickup and drop-off from maximum of 12 children. And again, I write no site plan. Lastly, 8, the parking should be located as to avoid the necessity for parent or children to cross the street or access. The driveway information implies the existing driveway is to be utilized for pickup and drop-off for potentially 12 children max, but does not provide for the specifics of overflow or parent surge during pickup. No site plan provided, and my staff recommendation, again, I'm not in favor. Thank you.
So I think this goes back to Dawn's question earlier around, if she was able to provide an accurate site plan and update the site plan, would it change any of these answers? And I would hope so. I would hope if there was a site plan created, it would change, you know, some of these questions around parking, the question around drop-off, the question if there's a fence or not. You know, those are just yes or no things. Those are just facts or non-facts. The minimum adverse impact, we have the signatures. So, you know, what I would recommend we do is table this, allow you to submit an accurate site plan so that we can look at this with these sort of, because I think these are so yes or no questions. These aren't, I think it'd be good to have a firm view of the facts of it, and then we make a decision based on that. So, but that's your choice. You could still go for a vote today, but my recommendation is that you table this for today and come back in the future once the site plan is done. So would you like to go ahead with a vote today on this still, or would you like to table it?
If I go here with a vote,
Yeah, we can
can I
give you
still
what
do a
happens.
site?
We can tell you the options. So if today's, can you give the options if it's approved, if it's denied, kind of give the the decision tree of how things work?
Mr. Chair, through you, if she decides to table, we will need that accurate site plan information to be resubmitted and re-reviewed. That will trigger a revision to my report. As previously indicated, based on the county information, I think we're just a couple feet. I don't know if it's going to drastically change things or my opinion based on what I found, but it is her decision. If Jim can speak to this, if she decides to move forward and it's denied, there is always an appeal process that can be taken.
And what's the appeal process?
The appeal process will be to council and then to court.
So if it's denied here, you can take it to city council and then they can vote on it. And then if they deny it, you can take it to courts, you said?
And yes, and the only thing I would be concerned about for today is that fence issue. I understand the setbacks because we have the site plan and we're off a foot or two. The fence to me is important because you got little kids running. I believe she's telling me the
I do
truth.
have a
We just don't
But
have
that's
that
something, she's
documentation.
saying she has a fence, you know what I mean? So it's like,
But again, I'm not,
There's
you seem like the nicest
there's
person in the
some
world,
pictures
but a correct,
also.
we're supposed to submit the correct
yeah,
documentation and vote.
and that's why I
That's
thought
all
she should
I'm saying.
resubmit
Yeah.
it with the information.
I'm thinking, ma'am, if you, I can't give you legal advice,
That's
but
fine.
the best thing to do to have the most informative decision is to have all the information provided so that everybody here can make a decision based on the facts. I'm sure you have a fence, but we don't, other than your word,
I
which I'm
have
sure.
pictures to show and everything, but I didn't know if that was good enough. You just need a site plan. Is that what you're saying?
And the site plan is more than the fence, is his report, and you have a copy of the report. If you don't, we can get you one, so that when,
Okay.
if you did table it, come back with all the items that Mr. Farkas has recommended, and then he'll revise his report to the extent he does. I can't speak for him, and then they vote on having all the facts in front of them.
Can I ask him a question?
Yes.
Do you say that, it won't make a great difference if I did it or didn't do it? Is that what you're saying?
Mr. Chair, through you, based on my precursory review using the Lorraine County Auditor's website, I took liberty of trying to get that information for the board's use. Since I didn't have it,
Okay.
the numbers may vary. When I show a 10-foot driveway, you may come back and say, no, Daryl, it's 11 feet.
Okay.
Or, hey, Daryl, the side yard setback, I show like 6. You may say it's 7. That's what I mean by basically minimal differences. So I don't know if that helps.
And again, I would say, from my standpoint, the things that, so if you look at the 1 through 8, the first, 1, 2, 3, 4, the first 4 are all, measurement setbacks and, things that I think is similar to every other situation we've dealt with residential. So I think those things haven't been showstoppers for us before. So those aren't my concerns. My concerns is, again, the parking, the drop-off, the fenced-in, the adverse impact on neighbors. Those things need to be tightened up so that, and for me to support, those will be the things I would want to see tightened up and that there's confirmation of, because the setback stuff, again, that was, somebody chose at some point 50 versus 60 feet. 50 versus 30 feet for, this parking setback. That was just a decision somebody made at some point in time. You know, that's not like that's a scientific thing. So again, my recommendation would be table, but you can go forward with the vote today, and so I'll give you that decision. What would you like to do?
Come back, I guess.
Okay.
Come back 'cause
Is there
everybody's on the same page, so we'll come back.
Yeah, okay. Is there a need to vote on the tabling of it? Okay. All right, so Ms. Stevens will table your application and continue to work with the staff here so that when you come back before us, all of this stuff is tightened up.
Ma'am, if you just get those in quick, if you just get those in quickly, you can be on the agenda for the next meeting.
I'm sorry, what?
If you just get those in with the time requirements that Mark can tell you, we can have you at the next meeting so that you have a prompt decision.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda, we have MB Vintage Cars, 198 Parmalee Avenue, requesting a variance pursuant to Chapter 116403 of the Elyria Codified Ordinance for a fence installation vacant lot. Is there anyone from MB Vintage Cars here? You want to come up to the microphone? Just state your name and address for the record, and then if you want to give us an overview of the project.
Yes, I'm Marcia Johnson. I'm here for James Moore. I'm his POA. Right. I was planning on putting the property up for sale to help pay for his long-term care. So I don't know about putting a fence around it if I'm trying to sell it. I haven't done that yet because he just went in less than about a week ago. So I'm just starting to figure out what to do.
Mr. Mayor, I apologize for interrupting. I think this really should be on the BOZA agenda. We are allowed as a planning commission to grant variances as related to an overall project. So if you were putting in a healthcare facility and where the garbage should be or the fences or the setbacks, when your only request is a fence, the requirements of our code are you go to BOZA, which is the it's the zoning appeal process.
So what we'll do, ma'am, and what'd you say your name was?
My name?
Yeah.
Marcia Johnson.
Ms. Johnson, what we'll do, if you could stick around until the end of the meeting, we'll talk with you about the right group to go before. This group isn't necessarily the right group to hear this situation, but we can get you set up to make sure you're in front of the right group, which is the Board of Zoning Appeals. And we can get you in front of us. If you could stick around, I hope and pray we get through these other ones a lot faster, and then we can help you out.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. All right, next on the agenda is Keystone Recovery, 300 4th Street, requesting a rezone from Business Downtown District to Residential Multi-Households, Low Density. Is there someone from Keystone Recovery here? Please come to the microphone, state your name and address, and give us an overview of your project.
My name is Rick Hammond. We purchased the property over at 300 4th Street back in November. Right now, there was two parcels. One parcel is zoned residential multi-family low density, the other one's zoned business downtown district. As you can see in the photos up there, basically it's a 6,000 square foot building with a lot next door to it that we would like to use for parking. But basically, as of right now, we just want to take both parcels and turn them into residential multifamily.
So this is the old building, and none of these pictures have been good ones yet, so we gotta find the one. This is actually the building that used to have dairy on it, to the right too. One more to the right. Okay, this is a sideways angle of it, but this is the building you're referring to?
Correct.
And you wanna rezone this from downtown to do residential?
Yes, sir.
And what's the plan for the property?
We would like to turn it into a sober living facility.
All right, any questions for him, and then we'll do a staff report. Okay, staff? Yeah, we do have a question, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I do have one question. So you're seeking to rezone, the property itself is two parcels,
Correct.
but and you're seeking to rezone one parcel.
Correct. So from what I understand, this is like a process that I have to go to. So I've been in contact with the building official. He told me that what I have to do is, the first thing I have to do is get that property rezoned to where it's residential multifamily, low density. And then from there, we can go forward to try to get it rezoned.
Okay.
For like a conditional use, I guess it would be, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, Chief Farkas, you wanna?
I got one. So are we trying to turn one parcel into be in the same zone as the other parcel is? Okay, perfect.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. This one is a very complex animal, as it involves a main building and a vacant parking space. Unfortunately, the parking space was altered and expanded with gravel prior to approvals. A fence was added on the vacant parcel prior to approvals. And now the proposed use of a recovery center is basically in a business downtown district. Now, back when these parcels abutted one another, they did have a shared parking, but they're zoned differently. One is zoned RMHL and one is zoned business downtown. Mr. Hammond and I have been in extensive communication in regards to the processes required to move forward with this proposed recovery center. This is the first step of many that needs to be taken if granted to move forward. So with that history, I'll do my report. The request. The proponent is requesting to rezone 300 4th Street, Elyria, Ohio, parcel number 0626046000-021, located on the corner of 4th and Middle Avenue, from a business downtown district to a residential multi-household low-density district as the first phase of accommodating a proposed recovery center, i.e. group home. Findings. It is the purpose of the business downtown district to encourage the functions of groupings of commercial, residential, and accessory establishments that encourage pedestrian movement and the preservation of historical characteristics of the downtown Elyria. The principally permitted uses can be located in section 115802 of the codified ordinance, which are as follows: allied health facilities, child care clubs, commercial recreation, commercial schools, convenience businesses, dental medical clinics, educational institutions, fast food restaurants, etc. The permitted accessory uses can also be located in section 115803 and the codified ordinance, which are as follows: any use customary and incidental to the permitted use, signs as regulated accordingly. I've listed the conditional permitted uses for the board's use, as my report is 4 pages long. I did list specifically all the requirements needed to comply for this particular zoning from an RMHL standpoint, which on page 2 lists the requirements for an RMHL is to establish in quality areas within the city for a low-density household dwelling to preserve the existing residential neighborhoods, etc. The principally permitted uses does allow for a group home as regulated in section 113710. I went into the permitted accessory uses. I went into the conditionally permitted uses purposefully to show the board the restrictions required. Page 3, I went into the minimum lot area and width required for an RMHL, which as you can see are quite large. The setbacks are also significant in regards to the change from a business downtown to the RMHL. I have written here the maximum number of multi-household units can be located in section 1150.06 of the codified ordinance as follows. The maximum number of multi-household units permitted on tract of land shall be based on the square footage of the lot and per dwelling unit. That is deciphered as you don't want to take a postage stamp lot and cram it with a 10-story high-rise residential unit because you're going to have parking issues, you're going to have all kinds of complications for trash, et cetera. I've listed the minimum side yard setbacks, the minimum rear yard setbacks, the height requirements, and on page 4, I've listed the land use intensity, the screening requirements, and the trash collection area. I'm going to go right to my recommendations. If the site is rezoned to a residential, multi-household, low-density district, it would evoke the need for many variances, as the site would lose its current non-conforming status. The site would require variance for the front yard setback, rear yard setback, side yard setback, and minimum yard lot coverage density requirements. In closing, the above requests would not maintain the integrity of the abutting zoning districts, create many unnecessary hardships in an attempt to maintain zoning compliance, and am therefore not in favor of the request.
Thank you, Chief Farkas. Are there any proponents, any other proponents, any other proponents? Any opponents? Any opponents? Please come state your name and address for the record, and you can be seated. Thank you, sir. You're good, thank you.
Hi, my name is Shannon Swab. I live at 503 West Avenue. I'm also on the Board of Trustees of the West Avenue Historic District, nonprofit. I'm just speaking as an opponent to this because of, Daryl Farkas spoke very clearly about that, but one lot is in the historic district, the vacant lot. There used to be a house there that was torn down a few years ago. That's why it was zoned that. That house was torn down in emergency demolition, but we're against this as neighbors because this doesn't conform to being a location for a group home in any way. It's less than a quarter of a mile from the school, which is against the ordinance, from two schools, St. Mary's and Elyria High School. And we want this to stay a business downtown district. And if anything, the empty lot should probably be changed to business downtown district. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other opponents? Any other opponents? Any other opponents? Come on up. Come on up to the mic. Please state your name and address for the record and anything you want to share.
My name is Dave Dickin, and our business is at 323 Middle Avenue, right across from the facility that we're talking about. So the side of our business and the side of the house, Deary's old place, is probably from here to the wall. So we've been there as a business for the past 70 years, and we've lived there. And myself and other people, of course, and other businesses do not think this would be beneficial at all to the area we're talking about, to the district there. And I'm not sure that it looks to me like there are people living there now, but I didn't go over there and stick my nose into it and see, but it sure looks like there are people now. And if you're going to do this, certainly the person that bought this would know what the zoning was at the time he purchased this. So I don't think this would benefit St. Mary's or the high school that was just mentioned, or any of the little businesses there.
Yep.
So thanks for listening.
Thank you. Are there any other opponents? Any other opponents? I couldn't agree more with some of the sentiments that's been mentioned. I think when we look at this comment you make, Chief Farkas, on maintaining the integrity of the abutting districts, I think that's what, it's a nail on the head, that there's, in my opinion, this just doesn't fit with what's happening currently in the city, and I don't think it fits with where we're trying to go as a city either, for this location. But that's my comment. Others may feel others. Does anybody else have any comment from the commission or questions?
Yeah, I'd like to, I'm familiar with this Keystone Recovery Group. I've seen some of the transitions that they've made throughout the city on other properties. The last thing I would want to see is another beautiful building downtown Elyria, going unused, another vacancy. Contrary to what the opponent said, I believe there's a very big need for that type of facility. Sure, should there be some restriction on the residents that may be placed there? Absolutely, especially complying with school zones and stuff like that. But I'm huge in favor of this. So I just wanted to make that known. I do know these guys that, the president of Recovery, vice president, very intelligent, smart businessmen. And I think it would be a vital asset to downtown. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Derek. And I want to also build on what you're saying. And I guess I have a question for you, because if I think our administration has been very clear that we like to see supportive services for people struggling in the city. We want people to rebuild their lives and have a hand up in terms of their livelihood. The issue is where this is located. And I'm curious as how much, because I agree. My frustration in hearing all of this is I wish we would have sat down and talked before you even went down this journey, because we could have said, hey, that probably isn't a good location for it. Here's a good location that this would have made a lot more sense for. So so you're saying you're in support of the location and the vendor?
Knowing a lot about the management team, I feel confident in them moving forward with this.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Other thoughts from Mr. Aiden?
So, I'm in agreement that we need more facilities like that, but I think they should be licensed by the state, which none of his are. I think they should also have conditional use permits that the city requires, which none of his are. Our courts, our muni court for drugs, won't send anything to their facility because they're not licensed and they're not regulated. So that's a class, when it's more than 16 and above, you have to have a full-time staff there. So, and I also think it's a spot zoning that we're dealing with by changing that, and I also have another question. This was referred last night to committee, and I always thought that came to planning commission before anything got referred to any committee. That just, it just seemed very unusual.
So I'll start with the last thing. So that is normal for us to have it referred. So right after we make our vote, it'll go to their committee and they'll say, well, what did the planning commission say?
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
So that's how it's planned. It got referred to be talked about at Monday's meeting, at this upcoming Monday's committee meeting.
But that was before our meeting.
And that normally happens, yeah.
Oh, does it really?
Yeah.
Okay, well,
if I'm correct, Mr. Ballard, as soon as we get the agenda of what we're going to be going over, it gets over to the clerk's office.
Oh, does it? Okay.
Yeah, that's what
Mayor, that's correct, Mr. Aiden. We tried to make it a smoother process, so by referring it to both locations, we still go first, and then the committee goes second. So they have our recommendation before they take it and make their recommendation, and then council gets it.
Okay, well, I still stand on everything else that I said.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
apologize, I was incorrect about that.
No, I appreciate that, appreciate it. Any other comments? Comments from the committee? Okay. If there's no more proponents or opponents, I'll entertain a motion to get it on the floor.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Aiden, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Calvert. Voting on the approval for, let me pull my agenda, I'm sorry. Voting on the approval for 304th Street, request for a rezone from business downtown district to residential multi-households, low density. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Nay. The motion has been denied. As was mentioned before, you still have an opportunity to go before a city council and request that they approve it. And then if, depending on how things go there, then you can have other processes going forward. And I would just say, let your folks know, if they want to sit down with our team and kind of find some alternative solutions, we're ready to meet and figure it out.
Mayor, since there was a split vote, I would ask you to call each member so that if there's any type of appeal, it's clear what the vote was.
So he'd like to do a roll call vote for that, Mr. Ballard. Can we go ahead and do a roll call vote? He wants to get every person on the record. He wants to do a roll call.
Tom Aiden.
So I didn't hear all that. I didn't.
We're going to do a roll call vote on the last thing we just voted on, on for this approval. We're going to do a roll call on the vote.
So Tom Aiden.
Nay.
Sam Battle.
Nay.
Barry Hubbard. Jim Onderko.
Nay.
Dawn Calvert.
Nay.
Derek Tedrow.
Yay.
Mayor Whitfield.
Nay. All right. And again, like I said, we're ready to sit down with you whenever you're ready, and we can come up with some alternatives.
Who do I reach out to do that? Here's where I'm not good at public speaking, So basically the only thing we're out here trying to do is help guys. I myself was addicted to drugs and alcohol. I got sober over 5 years ago, totally turned my life around. All I'm trying to do is help other guys out. I'm a contractor inside the city of Elyria. We do excellent work no matter where we're at. I mean, that building will not become dilapidated. We will make any necessary repairs to that building as needed. That building has been neglected for the last 30 years. There's no doubt about it. And then, so basically all we're trying to do is, I understand you guys made your decision or what have you, but, so all I'm trying to do is take a vacant property that is zoned residential multifamily and turn this other one into it. It was already built with 3 apartments in it. We didn't change anything structurally inside this building at all.
Yeah, no, we appreciate it. And again, I think you have a number of pathways right now. One is you can make your case to city council and see if they override what we decided here. And the alternative is we can look at other locations that this could potentially, because I believe in the service. I appreciate you sharing your own story as well. This is something I'm all in on. I totally believe in. This is, in my opinion, was not the right location for something like that.
That's fine. So do I just set up a meeting with you then, or?
Yeah, and we can work through Mark to set that up the same way we got you on this agenda.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. No, thank you. All right, next we have a planning commission case for the Elyria Block Development LLC, P.O. Box 696, Elyria, Ohio 44036, requesting a replat for the listed parcels. Is there anybody from Elyria Block Development here?
Mayor, I received a text message earlier today from Stephanie Mercado representing this request. Unfortunately, she has been traveling and experienced delays and was unable to make it today. We briefly discussed tabling this. However, I do not believe, unless Mark received it, that we received the official request to table.
No, I haven't received anything.
Jim?
Well, I mean, they do not have to be here for us to vote, obviously. Stephanie is their attorney. I think if an attorney has notified us that they want it continued, I'm okay with continuing it, because if we don't do it, it's going to cause a lot of problems. I'd recommend the continuance based on the conversation Dawn has had, even though we don't have it in writing.
Yeah, this isn't our first case that we've seen without a
Yep,
representative,
yep.
That's not the issue. So let's go right into, are there any proponents? Are there any, this doesn't do the proponent-opponent thing?
What, I mean, hold on, Dawn, let me converse with Dawn, just because.
Hold on just a second.
For the record, the only reason I asked to talk to Don, they had some changes, I think John can talk about it, since they're not on the paperwork that's been submitted. There's a need for an easement for a utility, but they didn't submit that, which they told us they would do at a later date. And so basically, I believe that easement's gonna be, John can talk to this, but I believe that easement's necessary for the lot consolidation. I'll check with I'll defer to the engineer for that commentary.
So, Mr. Schneider, do you want to speak to the easement side of this? He's pulling up the details of it.
In regards to the old alley that was there, we don't know what private utilities are on the alley. We know there's no significant city utilities. So, it was just pointed out in a general conversation with the engineer a while back that that be looked at. This way, if there's a requirement for an easement, I don't know if you said if Columbia Gas or Windstream has underground facilities. I know they do. I just don't know what the extent, if they can be abandoned and cut off, or what the intent would be. But that's the main concern.
Are you comfortable with us going, whether it's approved or not, if it was approved, putting conditions on those easements that you could administratively handle?
Well, I would go to, refer over to the lawyer or the legal counsel. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, that even if we were to vacate this and there's an existing utility there that's, they would have a easement by prescription?
Well, they'd either have an easement by prescription if it's been there for more than 21 years, or if they have a written easement, which, again, we don't know, that would be something the developer would do with their engineers, their surveyors, et cetera. They would normally plot that on here so that there is no debate between the owner, Columbia Gas, Ohio Edison. I believe you said there's no City of Elyria easements on there.
Well, it used to be right away, and that was the issue.
But that-
So no easement was
right-of-way.
required at the time.
Right.
When it was vacated, so.
So Jim, are you comfortable with us moving forward? It may not get approved, but if it's approved, we're just putting conditions on the approval?
I don't really feel comfortable with that because I don't know what the easements are. I don't believe Mr. Flanagan and his group is going to not plot that, but it should normally be done when you do the consolidation. The easements are all done simultaneously and not added after the fact, especially when I don't know what they are. If someone said it was just an Ohio Edison easement along the front for 10 feet, I would feel comfortable. I don't know what's there, and I don't believe the engineer doesn't know what's there either. So normally it would always, we've always asked for that to be done all at the same time and then passed so that we're, and we talked to Stephanie about that, and she agreed she didn't have that information, unfortunately, and that's when she indicated she was okay with extending this to the next meeting. I'm not trying to delay this project at all. I'm just trying to do it by the book and what makes sense so that we don't have a fight later on with Columbia Gas, Ohio Edison, or someone else.
Okay. All right, so it sounds like we're tabling this matter to the next meeting as well. As you can see, there's a summary of reports here from applications that have been approved. I just want to highlight one of them that I'm excited about, and that's the Giant Eagle. Isn't that Giant Eagle on here? Getting a remodel of their store, new facade, the drive up. So folks, you know, my wife will be happy to hear that that's a new service that's going to be available at our Giant Eagle. You know, we often are in conversations trying to fight for Elyria to have the same amenities as other communities have, and Giant Eagle has been really responsive to that request. So just want to, you know, put that on the record and thank them for that. With that being said, if there's any, Mr. Aiden, any further questions?
I was just gonna make a motion to table it if we needed it.
No, we don't need to make a, we don't need to make a motion to table it, right?
Okay.
Based on their verbal request, we are tabling it. If there's no further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Aiden, is there a second? Second by Mr. Hubbard. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank y'all. Mark?